Guys of a Certain Age is brought to you by no one. Absolutely no one. Except these dudes walking down memory lane. Now let's head to the studio to see what they misremember next.
And we're back from 4 to 2. It's Guys of a Certain Age. Robbie Koblitz in studio alongside
Jay Reed.
Yeah.
I was doing the math in my head. I kind of distracted.
You forgot our
4 to 2. We did have 4.
We had 4 here. Moment. And there's still glasses left and the extra microphone. The whole
as
night.
if we were coming back.
It was as if we were coming back. Had a great time with Tracy last week, didn't you?
I did. It was a great episode. I think one of our best, perhaps.
And enjoyed lunch afterwards. And we just found all the people we knew in common, and it was just kind of crazy. And thanks, Tracy Griffin, for showing up and hanging out and being seen in public with us.
There you go. That's the big one right there.
Yeah, Restaurant Tyler, no less. And they didn't have barbecue okra, which, for my money, is one of the best appetizers in the state of Mississippi.
Agreed.
So it was a little sad, but, I can't recommend Tyler enough. If only Ty would pay us to say that instead of us doing it out of the kindness of our hearts. So Art's on assignment or off assignment or somewhere. We really don't know where he's at.
He working maybe
probably working
in a meeting.
Since he's the guy who's got probably the most no, you've got a real job. I mean,
pretty much.
Yeah,
you call it a real job.
Yeah, yours is a real job. Mine, not so much so. Mine's just more.
I think you have multiple real jobs. That's maybe
And they all merge together into this one continuum of work and despair.
Continuum of chaos.
Continuum of chaos. That's it. All right, let's jump into some Geeks of the Week. Since Art is not here, I'm going to take the number one position.
Okay.
So, did you ever see 28 Days Later, the Danny Boyle movie that came out, 15 years ago? It was probably the first modern zombie movie that dropped. Do you remember it?
I don't think so. I think the only 28 Days I remember, wasn't there a Sandra Bullock movie called 28 Days?
Yeah, there was something like that.
Something very different.
Well, and I've talked about 28 Days Later, which is there's a lot of influence upon The Walking Dead. So it was a movie that Danny Boyle directed, produced. I think he may have written. It was kind of shot guerrilla style in London. You may remember me talking about, well, I'll talk about that in a second. Just to set up this guy, he's a bike messenger in London. He gets hit by a car, ends up in ICU, and in a coma for 28 days. He wakes up in his hospital bed. Stop if you've heard this before, Walking Dead fans, and he realizes that there's nobody around. And so he's just stunned. He takes the IV out. He's feeling good. He seems to have recovered. And a zombie apocalypse has hit London. And so he makes his way through, except the zombies are a little bit different. They're more like rabies-infested people who run fast and feast upon human flesh. And
how's that different from normal zombies?
Well, normal zombies, if you remember, if you look at The Walking Dead, they're usually slow.
I haven't.
Well, zombies traditionally have been slow, lumbering.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
And like their legs are decrepit. They can't go up steps. So the Zombie Survival Guide highly recommended sheltering in a place with stairs because zombies can't go up steps. That wasn't the case for 28 Days Later.
Okay.
It was shot on mini DV, kind of a shoestring budget. And one of the fun stories I've heard, I don't know how true it is or not, but they didn't have money for permits to shut down filming in downtown London. So they were really doing this guerrilla style. So what they did, they supposedly hired strippers to go down 3 or 4 blocks from where they were shooting and had them perform, which stopped all traffic. And they got the shots with Cillian Murphy. This was his first major role of any sort.
Okay, so he was the guy in the bed.
He was the guy in the bed 28 days later who woke up. And so they got him looking on these desolate streets of London on a Sunday morning where there's very little traffic anyway, and there was definitely no traffic. So it was a popular movie. It was well made. A lot of things were implied, kind of maybe the spiritual successor to the Blair Witch Project in the shoestring budget. And Christopher Eccleston was in it. That was one of his first roles. This was before he was Doctor Who, before he was in Thor, before he was in anything else. And this was Cillian Murphy's first piece. Of course, Cillian Murphy, Mr. Oppenheimer himself,
right.
who just won the Golden Globe for his performance in a dramatic movie. probably is going to win the Oscar for it, who did an amazing job as Robert Oppenheimer. This was his initial foray into film. Danny Boyle, who directed Slumdog Millionaire, and won the Oscar for it. Very, very well-known director. Anyway, gets to my Geek of the Week. They had a 28 Weeks Later sequel, which didn't have any of those people involved. Now there is talk of a 28 Years Later sequel. And Sony has won the rights to the movie. And there is a there's an additional nugget if I could read. Cillian Murphy, who was in the original, will executive produce the sequel, which means he's got his name attached, maybe a little bit of money and some involvement in the story, and he may star in it. So if Cillian Murphy comes into a 28 Years Later, if they can get, I doubt Danny Boyle would direct. Obviously I can't read very well. Danny Boyle is attached as a director. Okay. So you've got an Oscar-winning director, probably going to have an Oscar-winning lead. 28 Years Later could be a pretty interesting movie.
Yeah. I would watch the others. Zombies, not.
Well, 28 Days Later it's a great little flick, and it's not that gross. Again, they had such a low budget, they couldn't do a whole lot as far as effects and bloody gore makeup. It's more psychological than anything else.
Was it 28 years ago from now, or is it just that's the most logical next sequel?
Well, it's the most logical next sequel, but I think it was 22 years ago is when it came out.
So by the time they get it done, it might be 28.
It might be 28, but it's pretty close. It's pretty close.
Yeah.
So Murphy would actually age appropriately, and cool. But I scanned through 28 Weeks Later, and it was like, okay, it was a cash grab, and I wasn't a big fan of it. I love the gritty realism of the original, and so I would hope that they would kind of take that approach. Danny Boyle was not he did not direct the sequel, so with him coming in on the final installment. But you had no idea, a lot like The Walking Dead, when it initially hit, you had no idea where the virus came from, what caused the apocalypse. You had no idea how far it spread. And so anyway.
It sounds more like Last of Us as far as how the zombies behave.
Yeah.
Because obviously they could get upstairs and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So in 28 Days Later is kind of acknowledged as the birth of the modern zombie-esque movement that you've seen with Last of Us, obviously The Walking Dead and all its spin-offs and a few other things. So, that's my Geek of the Week. That was almost 8 minutes of zombies.
8 minutes. Well, I'm going to turn it back around to DC for my geek. Announced this week the DC Universe has added Millie Alcock as the new Supergirl. It doesn't say specifically what movie she might be in.
I think she's going to appear in Superman Legacy.
Okay, yeah, well, I didn't dig deep into it. I just saw it on Geek Facts, just more or less saw the headline.
Some of us who that was going to be their original Geek of the Week, but decided to allow someone else to take it.
If you did research, then please share what you know.
I believe she's going to appear in Superman Legacy.
Okay.
So
I was looking at the picture. Of course, this is just a mock-up, I'm sure, but a couple of things I thought about. Number one, this is Millie Alcock, and I'm going to butcher this name. She was in House of the Dragons, was Rhaenyra Targaryen.
Oh, very good. Okay. She was the young
right, the young
Targaryen
version. Yeah.
And she did an amazing job.
And I loved her in that. I did like her in that. And I think it's interesting that so many actors now are just kind of bouncing back and forth from geek world to geek world. So she's moved from the House of the Dragon. I'm blanking on the original series that started that.
She was not in the original.
No, but what was the original?
Game of Thrones?
Game of Thrones, right? I couldn't think of it. Okay, so Game of Thrones is a world, and then you've got, DC, a world, Marvel, Star Trek, Star Wars, all that stuff. It's interesting how people bounce around, so I'll be curious to see how she, lives in this world.
You know who I credit with that?
Who's that?
Robert Downey Jr.
No doubt.
Yeah, he proved that an A-list star, even though Iron Man was a rebound, and we've talked about that quite a bit here, but he can prove that it can be financially lucrative, as we talked about with Tom Holland's misguided bonus check last week. But it's more popular, and you're not as typecast.
Yeah, and well, I was going to say, to ride on that, he also proved that he could bounce back out of that world too. I mean, he did a super job in Oppenheimer, and I'm sure other things that I'm forgetting, but that's the most recent thing I've seen him in. So he bounced into the superhero world and bounced right back out seamlessly.
I will tell you, I did watch parts of Tropic Thunder.
There's that.
And Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder. I'm just a dude playing a dude trying to be a dude. Just amazing. Just amazing.
So I think that's an interesting component of this. I will say that I really liked the other Supergirl that was in.
Benoit, Melissa Benoit.
No. I like her.
In the Flash.
Benoit, I liked her too, but the one that was in the Flash, I really liked. But I do think that Millie kind of looks more like what I expect Supergirl to look like from the comics and from previous shows, and so I don't have a problem with it. But I was like, oh, this other, I like the dark-haired girl. I can't remember her name, and I'm sorry.
Can't either.
But I thought she was great. So we'll see how it goes.
So she is the Supergirl standalone movie is called Women of Tomorrow, and so that's been announced. I think maybe is Gunn writing that? I can't remember.
He seems to be writing everything, so probably
he is. He's got a little Aaron Sorkin disease. Yeah, of course.
Well, I'll write it. I'll direct it. Why not? I mean,
Because if you recall, when we talked about The West Wing, everybody knows how much I love The West Wing. Aaron Sorkin basically wrote every episode of the first 4 seasons, and he burned out. And so I'm hoping we're not going to see James Gunn burning out. So, but
he probably has a vision, wants to see that vision happen. But that is a typical way in any profession to burn out, is to think that you've got all the smarts and you have to do it right, or it's not going to happen right. So that it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
That's never happened on this podcast.
Probably not.
Yeah, no. None of us are smart enough to think we're smart enough. So you want to jump into your regrettable smart enough?
Jay's regrettable segment this week from the League of Regrettable Superheroes. This might be, granted, this is only our third one, but so far this might be my favorite.
His
name
favorite
is,
of 3.
Of 3, yes. I'm showing Robbie the picture. Let
me see the picture.
This guy's called the Bouncer.
The Bouncer. Oh my goodness, he has a skirt on.
It's a toga.
He has a skirt on.
It's a purple toga. It does. The cover does say your favorite pinup, which is rather odd. But this guy had his own series. He was created in about 1944. Fox Features, created by Robert. I'm going to butcher these names too. So Robert and I can't see them, like Robert Knider or Kniher and Lewis. Anyway,
for the record, he has his own special light for this.
I do, and it's not close enough to my book. But okay, so the Bouncer, his name comes from the fact that he basically bounces. He has some special connection with the earth, and his special connection with the earth comes from Greek mythology. In Greek mythology, his name was Antaeus, who wrestled Hercules. And I did a quick little background study on Antaeus, and he had, as long as he wrestled anybody, he would challenge people to wrestle him as they came along.
Did you wrestle Hulk Hogan?
I don't think so. Well, maybe in the comics, but not in Greek mythology. But he'd wrestle a lot of people. He would kill them, and he took their skulls and built a temple or some such nonsense. But that all was fine. As long as he was touching the earth, there was no way he could lose. Well, Hercules came along. Decided to wrestle him. And Hercules figured out what was going on, held him above the earth, and basically crushed him in a bear hug. So all was fine until Hercules came along. So fast forward to, 1944, I guess, and a descendant of Antaeus, his name is Adam Antaeus Jr. So yeah, I know that was not lost to me. Adam Antaeus is an artist. He was a collegiate athlete. He had a ability to bounce, so he was great at high jump and that sort of thing. But he basically got out of that, decided to become a sculptor, and he has a sculpture of his ancestor Antaeus somewhere nearby. And there's John Manley. Okay, he's got a friend named John Manley, who's an attorney who is being attacked by a criminal named the Glowworm. And without warning, the sculpture basically comes to life. And so Antius, a.k.a. the bouncer, and his descendant, Adamantius, are basically the superhero team. I don't know who's the sidekick and who's the, superhero.
Wow.
But it's
great.
fun. I mean, it's kind of a fun deal. They because the sculptor, his costume is his sculpture outfit. So he's got a paint splattered coat. He's got a beret. Looks like a typical stereotypical. His picture's not in here, but stereotypical artist picture. Then that's how they bounce. And so as long as he can bounce, he's good.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
that's a lot of fun.
it is. And of course, he's in. Antius still wears his purple toga all through the.
Here,
different
hold that up
episodes.
so I can see that toga a little bit more, because I
Put it in the light this time.
that's not a toga, that's a skirt
Well, it doesn't look like the togas that were,
from Animal House.
exactly.
Yeah, it does not.
But here's the cool thing about this comic that maybe sets it apart as a comic. Youngsters, and that's the word they use, were asked to send in photos and descriptions of themselves, of course, with parental consent.
Of course.
They sent that into the comic, and every issue, every month, 2 entries were chosen to join the adventure. So they'd have their photo and their description, and they would write in these kids
that's
as
fun.
a part of the adventure. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. That definitely would keep people interested, because you'd keep writing and keep buying to see if you were the next kid to be a part of the adventure.
But obviously it didn't work.
I don't know. When you look up, when you Google it, there are far more like covers than some of the 2 previous that we've talked about.
Yeah.
So I think he had a little bit longer life than some, but obviously not long enough. But I think that would be fun.
He got bounced.
I would vote. Very good, very good. I would vote that this would be not regrettable, just because of the gimmick of the including kids and
the taking the helpless innocent and using them and exploiting them for your own commercial gain.
capitalism. Yep, for sure.
Yeah, capitalism. Yay. So,
But what do you think?
regrettable or not
that's
regrettable? Just for the beret and the toga. I mean, that gets the not regrettable going.
The toga that's not a toga.
The toga's not a toga. Speaking of Greeks, do you still have Disney Plus? I don't have.
Oh, yeah, I do.
All right. Have you watched Percy Jackson yet?
No, I haven't. No.
I would highly recommend it.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think there was some movies right before.
There was a movie.
I saw the movie, but I have not seen the series.
Yeah. So we read the books, got them. The boys had them.
Jacob read all that.
Yeah, they're great. They're great. Great series. They did a great job. A lot of fun.
Okay.
So, and
even if you hadn't read the books, would it be enjoyable?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So they did a great job.
And it's not just young adult kid. I mean, it looked like there was quite a cast of younger kids.
Lance Reddick's in it. You know who Lance Reddick is?
I know the name, but I can't picture it.
I'll pull up a photo. He's been in a lot of things.
One of the old. Are you saying he's one of the kids?
No. Lance Reddick is in the movie. I don't know the kids. That's Lance Reddick as a point.
Okay, I did see him in the preview when I was watching Echo. I saw as it flashed up.
Yeah, and this is his last role, so they dedicated the last episode to him. He died last year. It was
I'm sure we did a geek of the obituary.
Yeah, so Lance Reddick was great. I got to know him. Wow. So I became a big fan when I watched Fringe. Okay. He was in Fringe, and he was in Percy Jackson. Maybe, I can't remember. He's just done a ton of stuff. He was in The Wire. He was in John Wick. Anyway, yeah, he was great. So,
okay.
But he's got a great role in the finale.
I've always liked him, so I might watch an episode or 2 just to see him.
But did you watch Lost in Space on Netflix?
A few.
So the dad in Lost in Space is in it.
Okay.
And there's a few other folks you'd recognize, but the 3 kids are all newbies. They do a great job. It's much, much better than the movie.
Okay.
So I would highly recommend that you watch it, and we can review it at some point. But the series finale just dropped this last week.
Okay. How many episodes?
8.
Okay, normal.
30 to 45 minutes each. So, all right, we've gone way over. We're going to come back and discuss Echo up next. And we're artless, but we're back. We're going to discuss Echo, which is just finished up a few weeks ago, week and a half ago or so.
Something like that.
That's
they all dropped at the same time, didn't they?
Yeah. I finished watching it a few weeks ago. It dropped in early January, 5 episodes, I believe. Mm-hmm. Picks up with a character that was introduced in Hawkeye.
Right.
So, Jay, you watched it. Give me the setup. You watched it more recently.
I just finished it last night. I probably watched most of it within the last couple of weeks. To me, Echo was set apart in a good way for several reasons. One, just 5 episodes. I mean, I could have enjoyed more, but it was I hope it was a great introduction. I hope we will see more of this character and this kind of storyline. But I thought it was it wasn't too much, it didn't leave me hanging wanting, thinking they had left something out. So a good length. It was, my first word that came to my mind was dark, but I decided I didn't like the word dark. It was darker than Miss Marvel for sure, but it was almost more somber.
So it's really is kind of the bridge from the Netflix Daredevil Defender series to the modern MCU.
Okay.
Did you watch Netflix? Watch Netflix. You've watched Netflix. Did you watch Daredevil?
I didn't finish the whole series, but I did watch a good bit of it and loved it. I just hadn't got around to finishing it.
Aliqua Cox.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, who was the star? She was Maya Lopez. So she appeared in Hawkeye, and she is Wilson Fisk, a.k.a. Kingpin. He claims her as his niece, even though there's no blood relation. And so she ends up turning on Kingpin in the final episode of Hawkeye and shoots him in the eye. And that's where it leaves off.
Shoot my eye out.
Okay. Thanks, kid. And
Red Rider.
Yeah. You'll shoot your eye out, kid. You'll shoot the Kingpin's eye out, kid. And so it picks
left him for dead, basically.
And left him for dead. So it picks up kind of right before that happens. You've got to roll back into Hawkeye where you see some flashbacks. You see her fighting the Ronin, who was Hawkeye's alter ego during the blip between Infinity War and Endgame.
That was a cool little scene. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, that was great. Then she stages off against Daredevil, and that
was also fun.
That was new stuff. And basically, she proves herself to Kingpin that she can handle herself from a fighting standpoint. So she is deaf. Right. Which she is deaf in real life, the actress.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
She's deaf in real life. She's Native American descent in real life. And this series tackles some Native American issues, which I think is really cool. And then she's also handicapped. She is missing her right, I think it's her right leg. You see where she's
the actress actually is. Yes. That's not CGI. Okay.
Yeah, that's not CGI.
Wow.
So she learns to fight. She holds her own against Daredevil. Kingpin, who was close with her father, is already kind of brought her into his life, decides she could be one of his top lieutenants. She realizes Kingpin, and spoilers, killed her father. You saw that in Hawkeye. So she gets her revenge, and then she leaves town. And she's dead bent upon getting revenge on Kingpin. And that's kind of the whole story.
Yeah, she didn't just leave New York. She goes back to, I believe it's Tamaha, Oklahoma.
That's right.
Where her family was, and they have mixed feelings about her being back. I guess they kind of know what she's up to a certain degree, but she's distanced herself from them for like 20 years. Our best friend Bonnie and, I guess, what's his name? Henry, kind of been back. He left her. Supposedly, we found that out in the last episode, but I really enjoyed the Native American aspect of this. Not just the way that they wove into the story, but the fact that a major character in a major TV series had that background, and from and they showed from the first Choctaw, and how that connects, and that's sort of her. I mean, she's a natural fighter, but she does have the quote unquote superpower that pops in every now and then that kind of generates from her being a descendant of the first Choctaw,
and that comes through her maternal line. So her maternal grandmother's still alive. Her mom dies early on. You see that in the series. And her dad was heavily involved with Kingpin. Her grandparents on her mom's side did not approve of their daughter's marriage to her dad, setting up the family strife. Once the mom dies, they moved to New York to be closer to her dad's job, which was, Crime Inc. with Kingpin. And so she, like you said, has been estranged, and she comes back. I was fascinated by the Choctaw aspect. My grandmother was partial Choctaw, so I've got a little bit of Choctaw through the maternal side. And obviously we have a lot of Choctaw Indians in and around the reservation in Philadelphia is, an hour from here. I remember as a kid going to Moundville, Alabama on a field trip to see the Choctaw Indian mounds, which was really cool. And they do a callback to that.
I was going to ask you, is that where that...
I think it's...
Because it just says Alabama.
I think it's implied.
Okay.
Is
there a mound that big there? I haven't been.
Yeah, well, I thought it was huge when I was a little kid. Moundville, Alabama, which is... between Meridian and Tuscaloosa. But yeah, pretty fascinating. And so you had that callback. And like you talked about, her powers comes from that original Choctaw who left the earth, rose to the surface and mothered the race and had those fighting abilities. And you see some callbacks through the years as those powers are passed down and kind of end up not unlike Rey at the end of The Rise of Skywalker, where you hear all the Jedi sending their good thoughts to her as she defeats Palpatine in the finale as Echo goes against
with all the sort
henchmen.
of Force ghosts of all those women standing next to her.
It was really cool.
Yeah, and the fact that she had there was I can't remember let's see if I can find the character's name. The one who wanted to be one of the light horsemen, I think her name was Tucklow was the character's name. And she kind of saved the day, came in, her dad said, no, it's for women to give life, men to take life. And she ends up saving the day anyway. But it is an interesting scene because you've got all these things that fit naturally and look great and just make the story, though. But it shows that the women are sort of the matriarch of Choctaw life rather than the men, even though the men have kind of taken over some of the power positions. Yeah, however you want to word that. But another thing I thought was really unique about Echo, maybe compared to the majority of your superheroes, is she didn't start off a good guy. I mean, when she was a kid, of course, she was nice. But even in that last couple episodes, they show Kingpin kind of beats up this ice cream vendor because he made fun of Maya when she comes along.
When she was a girl.
When she was a little girl, like 7 or 8, and he thought she would be upset by it. Well, she just comes in and kicks the guy. Yeah. And they walk off hand in hand, and he smiles and knows he's got something special there in his head. Yeah. So the whole, almost like a prodigal granddaughter kind of a thing. Yeah. You look at it from Chula's perspective, the grandmother, is that she's gone off, she's turned bad because of the influences of the world, but then she comes back and becomes, gets back on the good side. So she's got a history. Yeah. In her history, she killed a lot of people. And so you've got that, but she's going to be a good guy now. Yeah. So I think that's
morally ambiguous, so shall we say? You know.
And this gets back to what I was saying about it. What do you call it, dark or somber or whatever? Maya rarely smiles. Yeah. In any episode. As a child, when she's playing with Bonnie, yes, and there's a couple of other almost smiles, like at the very end when she comes back and is hanging with the family, and but it's not a happy show. No. But I didn't walk away thinking I need to go watch. Melissa was talking about the other night. We watched something. I can't remember what it was, but it was a very dark show. And Lauren was like, "We need to watch Donald Duck now because that was too dark." So I didn't feel like I had to do that after watching this, but it was definitely a step out. And I think we talked about a week or two ago how, and it's a Marvel Spotlight picture.
That's right.
And whether or not that has anything to do with it, obviously it does, but I don't know what we have to look forward to from Spotlight.
I think
how it's going to be set apart.
I think with the Spotlight series, they're trying to do standalone that you don't have to have the burden of of seeing every Marvel movie ever to understand. And so that's why you had the Ronin piece in there. You had the Daredevil piece to set her up. So I think that's what they're trying to do with Spotlight. I love Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin.
Yeah.
He did an amazing job. He's just an incredible actor. I can't imagine anybody else playing that role.
Yeah.
And there's a stinger at the end of the last episode where he's defeated and he decides to run for mayor of New York.
I wondered if that was coming next.
So I believe he does that in the comic books, and he rises. He's mayor of New York, which will set him in opposition to Daredevil. And then there's been talk of he would be the next big bad for Tom Holland's Spider-Man.
Okay.
Because, they all inhabit New York City, and so he's larger than life crook in City Hall. And so there's speculation that Spider-Man 4 would involve that. Daredevil Born Again is probably going to have some undercurrents. You'll have John Bernthal, I think I pronounced his name right, back as Punisher, which will have some elements there. So Daredevil Born Again, I'm really looking forward to, because to me this was a great transition from the Netflix Marvel series to the Disney MCU and what they're doing there. It's such a better series than Secret Invasion. I mean, so much better.
Yes,
agreed. On every level, the acting, the writing, the directing, the story. I may have enjoyed it more than Loki 2, but to me, you watch Hawkeye, then you jump into this. So I'm really, I recommend it highly. Do you recommend it?
Absolutely recommend it. And I agree with you about Kingpin and Vincent D'Onofrio. He, I don't know that much about the original character in the comics, but from what I've seen, I can't imagine a better portrayal, a better jump from page to screen than he has done. Yeah. Because he just sort of embodies the character, and I don't know, that may be a given, but it just seems he seems a natural for this role.
He seems so larger than life,
in every way. I mean, literally too. I mean, I don't know how big he is normally, but he's a Hulk.
Yeah, but he's a Kingpin, and he's not a Hulk. Kingpin, so
and he's vulnerable. I mean, obviously he can be hurt.
Yeah. Well, and emotionally as well as physically, and we saw that in the Daredevil series too. So if you recall, he had his opened up with his female companion, so
right.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, it's just, man, it's fascinating.
Yeah, definitely recommend. And again, I would definitely watch if there was more coming, but I didn't feel like, okay, well, there was an opening for something, whether or not that scene was for Spider-Man or for something else, something's coming that involves that. But
I wonder if Maya's going to be recruited into the Young Avengers, which I think would be great. Or into, is she going to go into Thunderbolts? Which there's been talk of, there's been changes in Thunderbolts. Somebody else just dropped out.
There's already been a replacement in that. I saw.
Yeah. Who dropped out?
And is she a part of either group in the comics?
I don't recall. I don't know.
Where's Art when we need him?
Yeah. I'm going to butcher her name. She,
I'm going to let you do it because I know what you're talking about.
Idibria, who was she played Sydney in The Bear. Phenomenal in The Bear. Maybe my favorite character in The Bear on Hulu. She was attached to Thunderbolts, and because of the writer's strike, she's had to drop out because of timing. So, yeah. She won the Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actress.
Okay. So. And that reminds me, the girl who played Bonnie in Echo.
Yeah.
Also was the voice, I'm probably butcher this name, was the voice of Kahori in one of the second season of What If. What If, which I have not watched yet.
Haven't watched it yet
But
either.
supposedly she's in that as another like I think it's a Mohawk character.
Oh,
in
cool.
that. So it's another Native American character, but something in the what if. So that's something that I'm interested in watching because I liked her. I thought she was great in this too. So
I watched the first episode of What If season 2, and that's it. So, couple questions for you. Did you like having them all available? I mean, you watched them later on, so you didn't have to wait for them to queue up. But did you? I enjoyed having them immediately available. Especially the shorter episodes.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't upset me when they drop on week by week. It gives you something to look forward to. But on a short season like that, I like the fact that I could have. Like I said, I didn't, but I could have just sat down and binged and watched. And they weren't. There was quite a range of time in the episodes too. 36 minutes was, I think, it was the last one, up to almost 50 and more in some of them. So, I mean, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I'm fine with that.
One of the things I've also noticed with recent streaming shows, I just finished Percy Jackson. Just talked about that. But there is a tendency now for streaming shows to write to breaks. So you're going to have a 5 to 7 minute segment, and then you're going to cut to black for 2 seconds, like an old commercial break, and it gives some dramatic pause. I find that fascinating in streaming shows because obviously everybody's going to an ad platform, an ad-supported platform. Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, everybody's got an ad-supported platform now, so it's a natural place to drop in ads. But also, just watching straight through, it does give you a little bit of a pause to kind of catch your breath after that previous segment. So, we can talk about that next week. But I forgot a geek that I thought was pretty fascinating that involves Netflix. So, but anyway, back to Echo. You recommend?
Absolutely. Give it the guy. What are we doing? What are we
Give
calling
it
the thumbs
the
up?
guy. Yeah.
2 guys.
How about hats off?
Hats off.
No, we'll do it. The guy's hats off because Jay always wears a hat and the rest of us don't, but that's okay. We'll let Jay own this one. So, all right. Great. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully we'll see you next time around.